And we'll get going. Happy Friday. Good to have some of new faces on. Hey, Steve, good to see you too. Um, Thanks for joining us from Southern California.
Thank you.
And Gilbert and all of you. I'm not going to probably say all the names that come on, but I do see a lot of people that I know and care about. So now our talk last week, if you were on, and if you didn't, you could have gotten the recording. If you didn't get the recording and you want it, let me know. It was about vision, and I told a lot of personal stories about my quest to become a dentist and the accidental right turn that got me into real estate, and and we talked a little bit about vision. So I want to recap on that just a little bit so that we can talk about what I want to talk about today. Before I start on that, I do want to say that one of my favorite coaches, one of my favorite guest speakers that we've ever had is a guy named Cleve Gaddis from Atlanta, Georgia, and he's going to be our guest speaker next week, and I couldn't even be more excited. Cleve's the kind of guy that when he gets on Zooms like this, gosh, that is an annoying sound. Wish I knew how to turn that off. Um, when he gets on a Zoom like this and he's talking to everybody, he's always keeping it on. Oh, I know, because Gina was nice enough to mute everybody. Um, he's got everybody's face up there, and he says your name while he's talking, and it kind of scares you if you're just kind of sitting back listening to him. And he'll say, yeah, so Cindy Cashin, my thoughts about this are this, and you'll be like, what? Oh, is he talking to me? And it's a way of keeping everybody involved, because you never know if he's going to call on you or not, or say your name out loud. But he's always got really, really interesting subjects that he talks about, and it's incredible. You're really going to love him. Plus, his Southern accent really helps with the delivery. I'm not saying I'm less of a speaker because I don't have a Southern accent, but I really like listening to this guy. So please do your best. It's a great day to bring guests when Cleve's on, because he talks about stuff, economic news from the real estate world. He talks about mindset stuff, and who knows where he'll go, because he's pretty darn educated and runs a team that does 300-400 deals a year in Atlanta. Plus he coaches some of the biggest brokerages and teams in the country. So you'll love it. Join us next week for Cleve Gaddis. Now, to wrap up what I talked about last week, is I was talking about vision. Some people have a huge vision for themselves. Some people don't. A lot of people actually get down on themselves for not having a vision for themselves or where my life is going. And I want you to think about everything that happened, listen carefully, that got you to where you are today. All right. And along the way, there was a lot of pain. There was a lot of strife. There was a lot of losing. There was a lot of failures, and there was a lot of successes. And losing and winning and failure and success are a perspective. One person's loss might have been someone else's win. One person's failure might have been someone else's success. It's all a perspective. What I've noticed as I look back over 63 years is that I've had this determination by seeing a mother and father in front of me who worked hard, that was one thing that I didn't lose a vision on, is that I knew that no matter what I put my mind to, I would have to work hard and I could achieve it. All right. So, and if you didn't hear the story last week, I can't repeat a 1 hour story this time, or I can't get to my message for today. But what I want you to be thinking about is, at what points in your life did you have a vision for yourself, or at what point in your life did someone else have a vision for you that you may have followed that actually worked out? Okay. And that's why I look so much at whose vision I'm following right now, and can I follow someone else's vision and still get to where I want to go? I had said something to a recruit recently about, he was telling me how the company he was with was offering him all these things. And I said, gosh, I remember those days when the company I was with offered me all these things. And I said, now I look back and I say, I wish I would have paid attention to whether or not these things were feeding my ego, or were they feeding my journey to the life I wanted to live. And that's a big deal, because we do have stuff sometimes, to this day, as much as I know that speaking doesn't pay me that well compared to the other activities I do, to selling houses or recruiting or all of the other things I do, when someone says, Rick, we'd love for you to come and speak for us, I get all excited inside. And then I start realizing what my hourly pay is. And I go, oh my gosh, I'm selling myself short. And my wife has actually asked me to pay attention to this, say, what is your value? So I want you to add to the word vision today, what is my value in life? And learn that one lesson right now, that if I don't value myself, how can I expect other people to value me? And one of the things that Casey constantly says is, I know you love, because she can remember a time when we were dating, we were not living together at the time, where I drove, listen to this, 3 hours and 15 minutes to deliver a 45-minute speech for free and drive back 3 hours and 15 minutes. Only me. Like, right? I mean, I didn't get paid anything, but I just loved the energy of being on stage and speaking, right? So the whole idea is, some things feed your ego, some things feed the journey to where you want your life to end up, and some things do a little of both. All right? It's so hard when you're in the middle of building up your ego to notice that you're lost in the ego part and not in, is this getting me to where I want to go? You get what I'm saying? Like, as we've gotten older, we wait till we start getting older to start thinking about how we will stop being able to work one day. And I can't say that that's true for everyone. I know that my 35-year-old son is much more retirement thinking at 35 than I was, right? And maybe because he saw the failures and the things and the successes that I had that kept me moving forward and still selling real estate after 41 years, right? So it's totally, the one thing you don't want to do is go get into judgment about this vision that you have for where your life where you want your life to end up. And a lot of people talk about this elusive thing called your why. What's your why? Why do you do that, right? And there's all kinds of stories and people trying to relate things to you, but very simply, it is, after the bills are paid and you're still making money, what are you going to do with the money? What's the money going to fund for you? What will it fund, right? And so now what I'm looking at in my life is, I just want it to fund more time for me to have freedom and fun. And guess what? I can say freedom and fun, and that's going to mean something different to Sarah or to Patrice or to Vanessa or to Teresa. It's all going to be different. That's okay. That's your fun and that's your freedom. But the idea of freedom is pretty similar for everybody, which is being able to do anything you want to do, whenever you want to do it, with whomever you want to do it, wherever you want to do it. Okay. And that is essentially what freedom can be. But not everyone's vision is about freedom. Everyone has a different vision. My wife spent 13 years and still going in the network marketing industry. She left real estate to do that. And I don't know how to make that noise go away, you guys. It's not that, it's this. So, but and the only way I can make it go away from my computer is to close your text messages. Okay, let me see if I can quit my text messages. Yes, I can. All right. Oh, yay. All right, maybe it worked. So the only way that you can do that is, I was saying is, if you're looking at freedom and that's your vision and that's your why, you have to decide where that is and what it looks like for you. So let me give you an example. Someone was telling me the other day that they're all set for retirement, meaning if they stop selling real estate today, that they'd have enough money monthly to live their life out until they pass away. They had some income coming in from some undisclosed sources. They had some rental income. They've got 401ks or SEP IRAs, but they were all set. And then she said, I can't see myself actually doing that though. I kind of love the real estate business. I love dabbling in it and I don't feel any pressure. So in other words, if I have a transaction or don't, I'm not pressured or stressed. I go, do you feel free? And she goes, absolutely. Right. So it didn't involve retirement. It didn't involve stopping working. She felt free. She could get up and go wherever she wanted, whenever she wanted, you know. And I got to tell you, if I were to that point, I don't know that my freedom would involve continuing to sell real estate. Now, maybe I would continue to oversee my team or do some things like that because the team is built and it's creating income. So you also have to say, well, is that the smartest move to make? Things like that. But the bigger story that I want to share with you today is about that vision, about whose vision you're following and whether or not it's getting you to where you want to go. And here's the thing, the reason I keep talking about your judgment is you can't beat up on yourself. Don't beat up on yourself if you don't have an idea what it looks like. Because I don't know that I did. I don't know that I had an idea of what freedom looked like to me. Right. And a lot of that is cultural. A lot of it is what your major adult influencers in your life, which for the majority of you were your parents, but for other, it might have been grandparents, uncles, aunts, people who adopted you. It could have been just somebody you admired from a distance. I have an uncle that just recently passed away at 96 years old, and he was never married ever, not once. Okay. He had one girlfriend for 42 years, and they lived in apartments upstairs and downstairs from each other. They never moved in together. Okay. But I remember he had a regular job at the cannery in Oakland. And, but man, he always had the nicest watches and the nicest suits. And we'd see pictures growing up of him on cruise ships with this one girlfriend of 42 years. And it was really crazy that all I did was think, God, I want to be like Uncle Jay. I kept thinking that, he seemed so free. He had nice things. He always drove a nice car, and of course, today I have like 50 watches. I have like 50 suits. Okay. And I wasn't even thinking of that when I started thinking about what I was going to talk to you today. I go, oh my God, I ended up like Uncle Jay. I got 50 suits of every freaking color of the rainbow. I've got watches. Those are the things that I look back and I say, I actually did follow someone else's vision. Right. And then it wasn't till I was 57 years old, 6 years ago, that I really, really saw for me what I wanted. 57. Most of you are not that old. Okay, most of you on this call and most of the people that will listen to the recording are not that old. So if you think about it, if it took me to 57 years, and it was really simple, it was at 57, I was like, it's just, I get it. Quality time with Anthony and Joey and whoever they may be married to or in love with, and quality time with Casey, my wife. Like those three things, became the most important thing to me. And then once you know that, then every single thing you do, if it is not pushing you closer towards that, then why are you doing it? Right? Now you might say, oh, but this thing right here fulfills my soul. Then good for you. Then you may want to veer off once in a while to get your soul fulfilled. All right. I talked to you guys all about it before. This call that started up over 2.5 years ago because a few friends of mine said, hey, Rick, you got a minute? And too many friends in 1 week said, Rick, you got a minute? I had no more minutes. I said, you know what I'm going to do? In fact, I was challenged by a friend of mine, Rosie Rodriguez. Well, why don't you just find 1 hour a week where everybody that needs got a minute can jump on? And that's how this Friday coaching call came about. And then we got into, 3-4 months, and I'm like, God, I'm tired. I don't know, and then we started traveling a bunch after I started this. And I was getting up in Australia at 2-3 in the morning to do this call. I was getting up we were in South Africa, and I was getting up to do this call. And those are the then I started to realize this call fulfills my soul, right? This call isn't necessarily moving me towards the direction of more spare time with my wife and my children, but it fills my soul. Do you get that? So what is that for you? Like, Sarah, I don't get to talk to you all the time, but I know when you're with your kids and Ben in the car and you FaceTime me, that's the biggest grin I ever see on you. Like that, right? Because Ben's in the car and the kids are in the car, or the dogs, but that's also that time in the car. While it's probably what you want more of in the moment, here's what we do. What do we do? Well, I should be selling another house right now. And then, when you're with the kids or you're the hubby, and then when you're out selling a house, you're thinking, gosh, I should be with the kids and the husband right now. And that's the biggest challenge in a commission-based business, in any sales commission-based business. So how do we do that? The biggest and best thing that you can do for yourself is to, number one, stop going to bed with judgment. Stop it. I had many friends who advised, or speakers would say, read something positive. Like one biblical based motivational speaker said, read the scripture before you go to bed. One said, listen to some upbeat music before you go to bed. The other said, don't look at your screens before you go to bed, or whatever, right? And a lot of times what people want to do after a long, long day is, zone out in front of a television show or something like that. And Casey and I have been doing that a lot. We've got so much going on. Casey's spending literally hundreds of hours finding designs for our new home that's going to close in April. Outdoor design, indoor design, all this stuff, like hundreds of hours. And I'm so grateful, because that would drive me bananas and I wouldn't have time to do our business if I was doing that. So we sit down at the end of the night, but again, we're sitting down to veg with our laptops on our laps, right? Continuing, but at least we're sitting next to each other, enjoying some time together. And then nothing worked. Like none of the televisions worked. All the techie tools didn't work last night. So we're like, screw it. We just sat next to each other, chatted, looked at things that we enjoyed together online. And that's what all of that stuff is on the vision, on the way to the vision. And if you go to bed not saying, gosh, I didn't get everything done that I did. Instead, you go to bed, and I'd shared this with many, many people on this call in the past, is to have like a journal that you use where you write down 6 things before you go to bed every night. Okay. So if you've heard this before, then okay. And if you haven't, you might want to write this down, even it's being recorded. You would write 2 items that I'm very, very, very grateful for today. Notice how many varies I said. 2 items that I'm very, very, very grateful for today. Then you would write 2 items that I did now I'm going to say very, very effectively today. And what I say that is, if you believe like I believe that things that you do are not good, bad, right, or wrong, they're either effective or ineffective. They either worked or they didn't work. So no judgment. Okay. If you start labeling things as, I did this good thing today, I did this bad thing today, you're always going to be in some judgment, whether it's a positive or a negative judgment. But rather than be in judgment, talk about the effectiveness. I did this today that worked. This is what I did. So 2 things that I was very, very effective at today. All right. Now, if you don't understand what I'm saying, unmute yourself and speak. Now, then the last 2 things, here's this: 2 things that I'll be more effective at tomorrow than I was today. That's the last 2 things. 2 things that I'll be more effective at tomorrow than I was today. Now, we've all had those days, guys, when we get home and we are, not really in a good mood, or maybe we say something that we wish we wouldn't have said. And so you might say, gosh, I really wasn't a good communicator today. So I'll be a more effective communicator tomorrow than I was today. I'll be a more effective dad tomorrow than I was today. That way you're not beating up on yourself. You're just stating where you have room for improvement. Okay, that's all. Now, one of the things we could all do is say, I'll be a more effective lead generator tomorrow than I was today. How many? Yep, every single person on the call. I'll lead generate better tomorrow than I did today, more effectively. And gosh, if we did that, would we not be closer to our freedom a lot quicker, right? So that's what I'm saying. It's really paying attention. But if you do this exercise of 6 items, and here's the little sub rule for the 6 items, is none of those 6 things can repeat for 30 days, meaning you can't say the same thing again for at least 30 days on any of those 6 things you wrote. So what do you have? You have a list that you basically have 180 different things where you were either going to be, you were already very effective, or you were very grateful, or you're going to be more effective at tomorrow. All upbeat. You go to bed with those thinking in your mind, and you probably won't have those nasty dreams or nightmares, or, I'm falling off a cliff and I woke up, or whatever it is that's happening in your dreams. That's because you're going to bed with positive energy. Now, what about in the morning when you wake up? In the morning when you wake up, you just have to be committed to being hungry, humble, smart, and coachable. Hungry, humble, smart, and coachable. If I wake up every day and I'm hungry, humble, smart, and coachable, then I'm going to be very accepting, ACCEPTING, very accepting of what comes into my life and pay attention to why I'm reacting to it. This is a really big deal when you're understanding where you're going in your life. When you have an adverse reaction, when you get mad or something somebody says sounds like fingernails on a chalkboard, then you got to ask yourself why. Remember, if you are triggered, remember this, if you are triggered, it is a reflection of something you don't like about yourself. You got nowhere else to go. You got nowhere to blame. No one, nowhere to blame, no one to blame. If somebody or something triggers you, the words someone said, the way someone acted, the way someone looked at you, the way they dress, the way they comb their hair, something you heard on the news, if it's triggering you, it's a reflection of something you don't like about yourself. So darn it, handle it. And if you don't feel equipped to handle it, then darn it, ask for help, ask for support, reach out to someone, say, I'm troubled. You'd be surprised at how many people around you are dying to help you if they just knew you wanted it. Mark Twain, one of Mark Twain's most famous quotes, I can help anybody they want, anybody I want, get what they want if I only knew who needed the help. Right? It's not natural for us to read your mind. The lady that I had a listing interview with yesterday, she said, she asked the best questions of any listing appointment I've ever been on in my entire 41 years. She said, how will you handle my needs? And I said, well, I will handle them quickly and efficiently as long as you're willing to let me know what they are, because I don't read minds. And she looked at me and put her hand over her mouth and said, oh my gosh, that's a great answer. And I said, well, you said you interviewed 5 other agents today before me. And she said, yeah, nobody answered it that way. Right? It's not like I'm a genius or anything. I'm just not going to read your mind, lady. If you got a problem, text me the problem. I'll take care of it. Right? So, and you know, when we left, she said she had narrowed it down to me and one other person from the day. And I was like all night going, pick me, pick me. The whole thing around that is that you have to understand, if your way that you get out of bed in the morning is going to be helpful in dictating moving the day in the direction of where you're going in your life. Moving your day in the direction of where you're going in your life. So Casey and I had a frank discussion on the couch last night that these are the things that would move us more closely and more quickly to our destination. Even though we know this is a loving journey that we're on, but we want the journey to include these things. And the best way to do that is there's several things that I can do today to make a difference in that outcome. All right. So what did it do? I looked at my day. I had several half-hour calls scheduled, things, and I say, okay, I can fit some of that in here and some of that in here. But if you wake up hungry, humble, smart, and coachable, hungry, humble, smart, and coachable, and you are willing to ask for help, and you're willing to stay in the discomfort of the things that get us what we want the quickest, you can move towards that vision. But again, if you're waking up hungry, humble, smart, and coachable, and you still don't really have a vision for yourself, it's okay. But you got to know enough about where you're going to have your daily activities move you towards that. Okay. I'll use Patrice as an example. She's desperately looking for a home for her and her fiance, and you know, the market, not a lot out there. She's made several offers. She's been, you know, skunked out, but she hasn't given up hope. And while that thought right there about finding the house is probably what consumes the majority of her day, is there something good, bad, right, or wrong about that? No. Is it effective? Yes, in some cases, and no in others. If it eats you all up all day, then when are you doing the things that move you further down the journey of your life? It doesn't mean that that's necessarily what's going on. That's just my outside perspective. No one knows but Patrice. So when you're looking at eating it up, I have every day I measure, is the next thing I'm about to do the best thing I could be doing in this moment, given where I want to go? How many times do you ask yourself that? Probably none of us ask ourselves enough. I know when I'm not being productive. I know when I'm not being efficient. All right. And there's times, right? We call one growth. Listen to this. One side's growth and the other side's decay. Okay. Remember, that's the only two things there are. So when people say, "Oh, I'm staying steady, I'm kind of stagnant," well, stagnant is decay, guys. That's going down. There's no such thing as staying the same. You're either going up or you're going down. So look at it. There's all these areas. There's your physical well-being, your spiritual being, your work being, the guy that works, and then there's your relationships. Okay. And the number one relationship you got to worry about every morning is the one that you have with you. How do you like you when you get up in the morning and look in the mirror? Is that someone you want to see? Is that someone you're proud of? Is that someone you're happy to say is an example to the people that you love the most in your life? Yeah, I had a lot of years where that wasn't the case, many. So this is a tough subject to hear because you're all going to absorb it differently. And even as I'm saying it to you, I'm wondering where I can improve, right? The only difference between the people achieving what they most want in life and the people not achieving what they most want in life is just simply the activities they focus on in a day. That's it. Right? And every one of you, if you're on this call, you're the kind of person that really wants to help others, without a doubt. But you don't want to help others to the detriment of getting yourself, because if you get yourself to where you want to go, boy, you'll have the resources, the wealth, the health, the management to help a ton more people than you could possibly do right now. Yeah. So over the last 6 years, I've had 3 surgeries. One, let's see. One was a very serious, what do they call it? Hernia, hiatal belly button hernia surgery, where I couldn't move, I couldn't activate my abs for 6 weeks. I had the surgery 5 weeks before. No, I couldn't activate my abs for 2 months, and I had the surgery 5 weeks before I got married. And I had to wear this band around my stomach, and I couldn't sit up in bed. I had to roll my legs off and then go like this and not do anything to activate my abs, and it was difficult. And then I know this is probably too much information, but couldn't have sex on my wedding night. Nothing, like for 2 months, from December 1st to February 1st. And and then another serious surgery for prostate, to shrink my prostate, and then another surgery in November of this past year to change my hip, to replace my hip. The reason I say that is at all those times, just as I'm a hard worker. I was like, I need my laptop or I need this. And I had to have my wife and my son on all 3 surgeries tell me, no, this is the time where you just focus on you getting better. And the main thing that I get from that story is there has to be times when you make up your mind yourself without help from others to do that, to put you first. Right. So, I'm back to shooting baskets, and next in a couple of weeks I get to play my first basketball game since March of last year due to COVID. I'm pretty darn excited. And if I hadn't had that hip, when I left basketball in March of last year, when I closed it down, I was running up and down the court with a very bad limp. So definitely not as effective as a basketball player as I could have been. But anyway, the main thing is that, now I'll be out sprinting the 35-year-olds again. And that's, what I'm looking forward to. Those things come from you taking care of yourself so you can enjoy the things you want to enjoy. Again, vision. So, as I said last week, I had a vision to be a dentist. Somebody else had a vision of me being a real estate agent. I got rejected by dental schools. I picked up on someone else's vision. Somebody else had a vision of me running a real estate office. I never thought of myself as running a real estate office, but if they have that vision for you, what do? They come and say, hey, how'd you like to run my real estate office? I go, well, I never had a vision about running a real estate office. I never thought about that. And they go, you'd be really good at it, right? And if you remember from the story last week, I said there was I had 50, 60 relatives in real estate who all said, don't do that. You'll regret that you went and ran a real estate office. It's like babysitting adults. This is from the uncles who were running the real estate office that I was in, right? And if you recall the story, I said there was only one person who pulled me aside and said, Rick, what's the worst thing that will happen? The worst, if you take this job as running someone else's office and leaving the family real estate business. It was I was leaving my uncle's real estate company to go run someone else's real estate company. And I said, oh, the very worst thing that could happen would be I suck and I come back to work at my uncle's real estate office. And he goes, how bad's that? I go, not bad. He goes, you might want to take the job. And I said, why do you say that? And he said, because I don't want you growing up and saying, I wish I had versus I'm glad I did. And that person was my dad, right? And this year was 1993 and I was 35, right? So it wasn't like I was a kid, 35 years old. And my dad said, don't go through life saying, I wish I had. It's going to be a much more enjoyable life if you say, I'm glad I did. All right. So all of that, I didn't have a vision for that. But guess what that opened up? Speaking, coaching. I never had an idea that I was going to speak or coach. But as I think of the visions that I had as a kid, my dad got transferred overseas. And all the times we'd be flying 13-hour flights, 15-hour flights, going back and forth between Saudi Arabia and Lebanon and the United States. And I'd see all these businessmen get on very nicely dressed with briefcases, right? And I'd say, gosh, that looks cool, right? And where was I? 2004, 2005, 2006, for many years. I was getting on and off planes with a briefcase and a nice suit, going to speak somewhere or travel somewhere or whatever. It's crazy, guys. Pay attention. Look back at your life and say, the visions that I had for myself are actually coming true. So my main message for you today is get a grip, figure out where you want to go, and get on the road to getting there. And if you don't know, you do know what you need. You need to pay your bills. You need to have a little money left over from paying the bills to do some of the things you love, right? I always like to say, fund your fun. How are you going to fund your fun? Well, I can't get to fun until the necessities are handled. So we get the bills paid. That's up to here. Let's just say the money we need to make is shoulder level. Everybody agrees on that. All our shoulders are the length amount of money we need to make to get the bills paid. Anything above that, I'm going to fund my fun, right? So what is that? Move towards it. Figure out what it is. If you don't want to do it alone, then get with other people and collaborate. If I was sitting alone with each of you, I'd be saying, what is the one thing that besides, now I'm not joking. I don't want you to think I'm joking. So besides sex and work, I do get lit up by work. Don't you guys get lit up if you get a listing or you got a buyer into contract? I still do after 41 years. So besides sex and work, what is the one thing that when you're doing it, you're lit up? For me, without a doubt, basketball. If my sons are over here and we're cooking and eating together, that's another one. Like, what are those things that in that moment, you don't care about your phone, you don't care about your emails, you're in that moment. I know it. Give me a basketball game. Let's up that up. If the basketball includes my sons, my nephews, my cousins, man, that's even a more fun basketball game. I know what they are. I just haven't always figured out how am I going to get there sooner. And I've probably known what they are my whole life. But I never stopped to say, how do I get to do more of it? Because why? I had a victim mentality. So I'd say, well, I got to work, right? Well, that's BS. This is a very abundant world. I can have this and this, not this or this. I'm going to have it all, right? We bought in August, we bought that 43-foot RV. And I'm like, oh, man, does this mean we don't get to get a house? No, we're buying a house now. Right? For several months, the only house I had, besides the one I rent, was my 43-foot RV. So I can have this and this. All right. And it's going to take some discomfort and some hard work. But if you know that that discomfort and hard work is leading you to that place of joy, that one thing that lights you up, it's not going to be a problem. And if it is a problem, you're not lit up enough by what you do. So get lit up. Hey, Rick's camera works. All right, that's my message for today. I want to stop for a minute because I said a lot of stuff there, and sometimes I get off tangent. If you have a question or if you feel like I touched a point in you that's bothering you, now's a good time to say it, because Oh, there is something in the chat. Let me check. I have a coach question. Call me later. Yeah. Let's see. Natalia, I put my cell phone in there, so text me and I'll remember later. Okay. All right. So if anybody has a quick question, let me know. I really appreciate that you all got on today. I will be sending out the recording, and I am super excited about next week. So I'll allow 15 more seconds to wait for anybody that has a question, comment, say it, just unmute yourself. All right. I love you all very much. Thank you very much. Natalia, let's talk about vision boards when we talk. And I'll see you all soon. I'll see you next Friday. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Rick.